summer, we've been unpacking moments where God calls his people and tells them to go. And this is the one word that God used. We see it over and over throughout the Bible. When God wanted to accomplish something in his world, he called his people and he used one word. He said, go. And here's the cool thing. The truth is that God hasn't stopped calling his people to go. He's still calling. He's still inviting. He's still sending ordinary people like you and me to an extraordinary mission. That there's more to this life than just waking up and living throughout the day and then going to bed and someday dying. There's more to it. There's purpose and there's perspective. And no matter where you are on your journey of faith, God is calling you. And maybe that's why you're here today. Maybe that's why you walk through these doors, because there are some things going on in your life, and there was just this draw in you, this thing that was like, I should just go to church. Let me just tell you, that is the Spirit of God. That is the voice of God calling you to himself. Or maybe for you, you've just got some questions, some doubts, some uncertainties about life or the seasons and struggles that you're facing, and God is calling you to surrender your life to him. He's inviting you, calling you to find the hope that your heart is longing for in the sacrifice, death, burial, and resurrection of his son, Jesus Christ. Or maybe you've just been in church as long as you can remember. You would call yourself a Christian, but God is calling you to lean in and surrender your whole self. Because while there's some things you know about God, you've yet to truly surrender your whole heart and life to him. Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle of all of that. Just know this, that no matter who you are or what you have done, you're not here on accident today. I believe that everybody sitting in this room is here on purpose, that God is calling and inviting and has a word for us today. He's calling you today. And so if you are weary, if you're wandering, if you're burned out, sitting in the shadows, wondering, how did I get here? Here's our big idea today. This is what we're going to unpack, that when the world says give up, God says get up and go. When the world says give up, throw in the towel, it's just not worth it. God calls you by name and he says, get up and go. I've got something more for you. So today we're going to look at how we get to those places where darkness creeps in and how God still calls our name in the midst of the darkness when everything in me wants to give up and quit. And he says, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. That's what we see God tell a man named Elijah in 1 Kings 19. If you've got a Bible, turn to 1 Kings 19. If you're newer to the whole Bible thing, that's where it's at in my Bible. So just kind of like the first quarter there or so. If you don't have a Bible, we would love to give you one. We've got some in our lobby at Heritage Central. Just stop by there. Say, the pastor said I could have a Bible. You can put your name in there, and it's yours. We want everyone to have a copy of God's Word. It is God's Word that changes and transforms lives, that convicts us and challenges us, that shows us who God is and reveals who we are. And so we want everybody to have a copy of God's Word. 1 Kings 19. We'll also have it on the screen so you can keep track and follow along. But let me just kind of catch us up where we're at, because when we get to chapter 19, some big things have happened. Elijah, he's a prophet. He's not just some like B-roll, bench warmer kind of prophet in the Bible. He's the real deal. He's the original fire caller. I mean, this guy, he just won like the prophet Super Bowl on top of Mount Carmel. And so you can go back maybe this week and even read some of that, because I'm not going to spend time going through all that. I've preached messages on this before, but essentially, he calls down literal fire from heaven to prove that Yahweh is the one true God. And so I'll give you a quick snapshot. The prophets of Baal, kind of this false God worshipers, they're praying to their God to consume their offering. And so God, whoever's God showers fire down from heaven, that's the one true God. So these Baal worshipers, these false God worshipers are praying, and their God doesn't do anything, and Elijah just starts mocking them a little bit. He's like, maybe your God's on the toilet. Maybe he's sleeping in. Maybe he's just a little busy. And he's like, check this out. And I'm not kidding. I'm not making that up. Read it for yourself. It's in there. And so then Elijah prays, and God sends fire, consumes the offering, all the rocks turn to dust, and licks up all the water that he dumped on it, and everyone believes that God is the one true God, and he embarrasses 450 prophets of Baal, proving that the God of the Bible is the one true God, and his people, the Israelites, who were worshiping a false God, turned back to the one true God. Then Elijah slaughters all of the false prophets, and then he runs for his life. And why does he do that? Well, because he gets this death threat from one of the most evil women who has ever lived. Queen Jezebel finds out that all her prophets are dead, and she's like, well, so it will be to the man who did this. And so Elijah hears that there's a bounty out on his life, and he hits the eject button. The eject button on ministry, on people, on his purpose and calling. And he goes from a mountaintop miracle experience to a meltdown in a matter of verses. And you say, how do you go from fire from heaven, God showing up, to, oh no, I'm scared and I'm going to run for my life? How do you get there? Well, because that's how fast darkness can fall, right? In a moment, one phone call. One test result from the doctor, one broken promise, one text, and everything changes. One moment you're confident in your calling, the next you're questioning everything. One moment you're worshiping God, the next you're wondering if he's even real. This guy's running. He's not going where God has called him. He's running away from it. But hear me, because sometimes when God says go, he's not telling us to go forward to something new, something shiny. See, so far in this series, we've looked at a lot of calls from God, calling people for the first time to go do a ministry, to go do a thing, to chase after the mission. And these guys have excuses why they can't or won't or shouldn't. And so, but this one's different. This one, he's not calling Elijah to go forward. He's calling him to go back. Go back from where you came, back to obedience. Go back to trusting me. Go back to purpose. Go back to where you stopped believing that I was enough. Go back to that moment. So 1 Kings 19, before I start reading there, let me just ask us this question to consider and think about. See, what voice is loudest in your life? What voice is loudest in your life? Is it the voice of despair that keeps dragging you down into hopelessness? Or is it the voice of God who calls you back to trusting that he is bigger than your circumstance? See, after the battle, after the adrenaline, after the fire from heaven and the miracle and the power comes the crash. 1 Kings 19, Jezebel finds out. She puts a bounty on his life. Verse 3 says, then he was afraid, and he rose and he ran for his life and came to Beersheba. Elijah's exhausted mentally and physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that's what makes him so vulnerable to the attack. It's why throughout Scripture we see God telling his people to be on guard, to be alert, to beware, because there is a real enemy seeking to destroy you. And so to be on guard, here's the first point. Darkness can often follow the fire. And the fire here is in reference to the mighty work of God, the fire from heaven that consumed the altar, the miracle that took place. So often darkness follows the miracles, the moments where God shows up. And if we're honest, that's where some of us are today. Maybe you walked in here and that's where you're at today, right now. You've been strong for so long. You've been fighting. You've been showing up. You've been praying. You've been leaning in and pushing. But now you're just worn out and you're about to quit. So let's learn from Elijah's life. Let's learn what he does. How does he get to this place of depression and darkness? But more importantly, how does he get out of it? So let's take a look. Steps that Elijah takes into the darkness. Number one, he embraced fear. He embraced fear. It says that he was afraid, and so he ran for his life. Fear is when I think that my situation is more powerful and bigger than my God. That's how fear gets embraced. When what I'm going through becomes the biggest thing rather than my God being the biggest one. I stop trusting in him. I embrace fear. And then he continues on and says, where'd it go? Oh, there. The end of verse 3. He ran for his life, came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servant there, and he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. Going to a dark place, it starts by embracing fear, and then the next step is that we isolate. We get away from everyone that can encourage us and challenge us and go with us, and he leaves his servant behind, and he goes on by himself in isolation. And isolation is a tactic of the enemy. It's one of his favorites, I think, because he knows that when we're alone, we're most vulnerable. You ever watch Animal Planet? And you see all the antelope in a herd together, and you see the lion out in the grass just waiting, and what happens to when that one antelope just wanders off and like, I'm going to go eat this grass over here? He's done. He's done. The lion doesn't always attack the herd, but he'll go find that one that's just drifted off and all by itself, and slam, he's gone. And that's what the enemy does. See, the Bible tells us that Satan, the enemy of our souls, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking to devour, steal, and destroy. That's what we're up against. Elijah embraces fear. He isolates. And it says he sits under a broom tree and asks that he might die. Here's the third step into a dark place. It's when you throw in the towel and give up. I find this interesting, though, because the whole reason he ran in the first place is because his life was under attack, right? See, depression, darkness, these steps, they don't always make sense. He's running for his life because it's threatened by the queen. Now he gets to a place and he's like, I just want to die. Well, if you wanted to die, stay where you are. She's coming after you, you know? It doesn't have to make sense, but understand that this is the mindset he gets himself into, and he just wants to give up. I'm just done. He says, it's enough now, O Lord, take my life. Notice the last step. He says, for I am no better than my fathers. And he starts to believe lies. I'm no better. I'm no better than those who've come before me. I'm worthless. I can't do anything. There's no purpose to my life. Embrace fear, isolation, giving up, believing lies. You ever been there? I have. See, did you know that darkness always lies to you and lies always lead to darkness? Telling you that you're done. You made too many mistakes. God can't use you now. There's nothing left. And it feels so hopeless. It feels so empty. But listen, God never leaves his kids under broom trees, sulking and wondering. In fact, he meets us there. We sang that today. He meets us right where we're at. He comes after us. And just because you've given up on life or you've given up on God or you've given up on hope does not mean that God has given up on you. And he's coming after you. And he's calling you. See, check this out. We see the character of God on full display as he meets Elijah, not with a sermon, not with a scolding, not with, let me explain to you, but with grace. Man, I think there's some parenting lessons right there. How many times do our kids just need us to meet them with some grace and some love, rather than a sermon, a scolding, an explanation? He shows up in our weakness to strengthen us for the road ahead. It says that the angel of the Lord, verse 7, the angel of the Lord came again a second time. So not once, but twice, God shows up through an angel and says, get up and eat. I like that command, right? Anybody else? Get up and eat. A second time touched him and said, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. See, here's the second point. When the tank is empty, God refuels you. He's the one I can go to, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. He's strong enough. He can withstand the pressures of life, and he covers over his children to protect us when we come under his protection. We were never meant to carry these things, these weights on our own. Isn't it just like God that when we're burned out and broken, he starts with our body to slow us down? I don't know about you, but sometimes when I just think I can do it, typically it happens right after Easter, when I'm going and going and going and I get sick. And I think it's God's way of like, slow down, dude. You're not that important. We're all replaceable. And he slows me down to rest, for margin, for encouragement before he speaks to my soul, to remind me who he is. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do. You ready for this? This is the spot for the amen, okay? I gave you the heads up ahead of time, so it's got to be good. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is take a nap and eat a snack. Let's go. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. God is preparing Elijah to hear God's voice again. He sends an angel. Hey, eat. Like, you've been through some stuff, bro. Just get recharged a little bit. Because you can't carry out the next assignment if you don't even have enough strength to stand on your own 2 feet. Now, Elijah, he's given up. He wants to die. But in verse 8, it says that he journeys 40 days to Mount Horeb. And if you were with us for the beginning of this series, we looked at when God called a man named Moses. And he started on a mountaintop called Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai. And now Elijah is going to that same mountain, to that same place. He's not just running, he's reaching. He's not just hiding out, he's hoping maybe there's a chance. He's returning to the last place that God was seen and known clearly. And when he gets there, God asks this strange but very piercing question. In verse 9, God says, "What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here, man?" And that's not a GPS question like, how did you get here? It's a heart check. What are you doing here in this place emotionally? What are you doing here spiritually? Why are you living like your call is over, like you're all done? Why are you paralyzed by fear when I've called you to walk by faith? And then God says, go. Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. I love this. See, sometimes before God tells you where you're going next, he calls you to step out of the cave of darkness and back into his presence. Go stand on the mount before the Lord. And this is where God shows off. And he sends a wind to tear through the mountainside. He sends an earthquake to shake the ground. And he sends a fire to flash over Elijah. All ways that God has revealed his presence and his power before, but this time he's not in the wind, he's not in the earthquake, he's not in the fire. And in verse 12 it says, "And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper." Why a whisper? I've taught on this passage quite often. I've never leaned into this part of it, but as I was studying through this time, preparing for this week, this just stood out to me. Why did he whisper? Like he does all the things, the fire, the earthquake, to show his power, his might, to remind Elijah who he is. I'm like, I get that, but why the whisper? Because God is close enough to whisper. God is close enough to you to whisper if you'll slow down enough to listen. Elijah didn't need a new mission. He needed to meet with God. Why a whisper? Because God's call to go starts with a whisper of his presence over your performance. And some of us need that truth today. Because God is inviting you into his presence, not your performance. He's not looking for you to be a circus clown or a circus monkey banging the drum for him. He just wants you to look to him, to his presence, to rest in him. See, the whisper confirms God's presence. God was moving Elijah out of the shadows of fear and reminding him of his presence. I'm with you, man. You're not alone in this. Don't give up. The voice of God, listen. The voice of God is loudest in his presence. Not just when I'm in his word, but when his word is in me. And the truth is that anytime God calls his people to go, he's reminding them of his presence and his power. I'm sending you, and I will be with you. Over and over and over, this is the whisper for Elijah. The gentle reminder, I'm still with you, you're still mine, and you're not done yet. Now, before we're able to get out of the darkness, we need to remember where the light is. See, our hope and our purpose, our joy, it's not found in my performance, how good I am, how much I can do, how hard I try, my accomplishments. And just like Elijah, what we long for, what we all need, is not to do better, try harder, or do more, but to lean into his presence. That's where the light is found. Jesus said it like this: I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Do you see Elijah walking in darkness and God inviting him back into the light? This is why he invites us to follow him. 1 John 1:5 says, this is the message we have heard from him, and we proclaim to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. And he is inviting you out of the cave of darkness and into the light of hope and purpose. So step out of the darkness and find Jesus, the light that your soul is longing for. After being reminded of God's presence through the whisper, God calls Elijah. I love it. I want you to go out to the mount before the Lord, where I'm going to speak to you. And he says to him again, what are you doing here? And Elijah's like, pity party still. I'm only the one left. There's no one but me. It's just better for me to die. And God's like, all right. Enough is enough. Go back the way you came. Verse 15, he says, go turn on your way. Return back to where you came from. Go back the way you came. God says to Elijah, you're not done. You're not disqualified. You're not disowned. You're just in a dark place. Now that we've talked, it's time to go. It's time to go back to the life that I've called you, back to the people that need you, back because I'm not finished with you yet. It's time to go back to the purpose, the obedience, to finish what you've started. And you say, so how do I go back? If I'm in the dark cave, how do I get back? Well, here's the path. Because if you've ever wondered that question like I have, Elijah gives us a pretty great picture. God helps us see a pretty great pathway. If I've done certain things to get into the darkness, what did Elijah do? What led to the darkness? He embraced fear. He isolated himself. He gave up, and he believed lies. So what gets Elijah out? Well, let's reverse the steps. If that's what got him into a dark place, reversing the steps, God says, go back the way you came. If that's what got you here, reverse your steps. Go back the way you came. Stop believing lies. Replace the lies with truth. That's how you get out of the darkness. Start replacing the lies with truth. Romans 12:2 says, be conformed not to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, believing what is true and right and good, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. Replace the lies with truth. Stop rehearsing the false script. Start renewing your mind with what God says is true. And then, instead of giving up, remember your call. Remember your call. You're not finished. God's whisper, it's to remind you of who he is, his presence, to rekindle your purpose. Don't give up. Remember your call. Reverse the steps. The next one, lean into community. Stop isolating. Stop trying to do it alone. Isolation is a trap, and the lion is seeking to steal, kill, and destroy. Later on in verse 18 of chapter 19, God reminds Elijah, you're not alone. There are 7,000 others. Here's a promise for us, Hebrews 10. Here's the truth. Let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as we see the day drawing near. We need each other. Every week that we gather is an opportunity to encourage one another. You say, well, I come to church when I can. It was a little hot this morning, so I'll get on the boat later. Or, I just happened to be in town from the lake house today, and so we just came to church. And listen, church isn't just about you or for you. It's for others around you. And when we gather, we are reminding one another, I can't do it alone. I need God, and I need His people to encourage and strengthen. Don't neglect to meet together, as is the habit of some. Lean into the community. Stop isolating. Here's the last one. Instead of embracing fear, trust God again. You tell your circumstances who your God is. Stop telling your God about your circumstance. He's bigger. He's stronger than whatever it is that you're walking through. Trust God again, even when you don't feel it. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, walk by faith, not by sight. If I walk by sight, my circumstances are always going to smack me in the face. If I walk by faith, I walk through those circumstances knowing that my God has got me, that I'm not alone. So here's the question that God may be asking you today. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Are you still stuck in fear? Are you still believing lies? Are you still living like your calling is over? Elijah didn't magically snap out of it. He met with God. He heard the whisper, and then he trusted. He reconnected. He remembered, and he walked in truth. And what God says to Elijah, He says to us today, you can't stay here. You're not done. It's time to go back. Back to obedience, to trust, back to hope, back to purpose. It's time to go back to Jesus. I get it. Today may not be your mountaintop moment. Today may just be today may be your broom tree day. And that's okay. God can meet you there. And He'll whisper, don't give up. Don't give up. It's not over. I'm still here. Elijah obeys. He goes back. He anoints kings. He appoints a new prophet, Elisha, just to make it more confusing for us, right? Elijah, Elisha, which one came first? Which one did what? But you know what's awesome? Elisha does twice as many miracles and sees twice as many powerful moments than Elijah ever did. Gets his fire back, not because his circumstances changed. The queen still wanted him dead, but because his focus changed. See, what lies have you been believing? Where have you given up? Where have you distanced yourself from biblical community? Are there some fears that you've embraced? See, maybe like Elijah, you've found yourself in a cave of fear and isolation and hopelessness or lies. And let me just tell you today, there is hope. His name is Jesus. He breaks strongholds. He brings freedom to every longing heart. See, here's the crazy thing. Those that have gone through life and said, it didn't go the way I wanted, it's not what I expected, God didn't show up. And so they walk away and they isolate from God. You know what they find? It's not hope. It's not purpose. It's not peace. What they find is themselves getting beat up by an enemy who's come to steal, kill, and destroy. Stop isolating. Stop embracing the fear. Run to Jesus. Your pain may leave a mark, but it's not going to write your story. The darkness might be real, but it doesn't get the final word. Your calling is still intact, because when God says go, it echoes throughout your life. And He's still calling. He's still calling you to step into His presence, to hear His voice whispering to you today,